Do you crave a more simple and minimal space? Do you want to start decluttering and minimizing your life, but you don't really know where to start? I've been where you are today, feeling overwhelmed with the things and the clutter in my home. So today I wanted to share my minimalist decluttering tips with you guys to help get that process started and take away some of the overwhelm. I still consider myself an aspiring minimalist. My home is not 100% where I would like it to be, but I've come a long way and I feel like I've learned a lot that I have to share with you guys. My first minimalist decluttering tip is that it is not a race. While you might want to declutter your entire house in one weekend so that you can start fresh as a minimalist next week, honestly, that's not really possible for most people. Not only because it's so time consuming to declutter your home, but also because trying to do so much at once is actually going to make you feel overwhelmed, and then there's a really high possibility that you might just quit. I know that there are definitely people who are able to become full minimalists really quickly and really just flip their whole life around in the matter of a couple weeks or a month. But honestly, for most of us, that's not possible, and that's actually going to create more stress than anything else. So take your time, remember that it's not a race, it's a process, it's a journey, and it might actually take you a few years, and that's okay. My second tip is to set aside time for decluttering. Like I mentioned before, decluttering is a time-consuming process. It tends to make a really big mess. So I really recommend setting aside a Saturday afternoon, or even better, a whole weekend, a long weekend, maybe even a week of vacation where you can really dive in and tackle a whole project at once. Because since decluttering makes such a mess, it is really nice to get a chunk of it done, even if that's just one closet done in one day, so that you don't have this mess spread out over several days or a week. My next tip is to declutter one space at a time. Don't try to declutter your entire house at once, going from room to room, like decluttering all the things, because I don't think that you can really do a good job if you're doing it that way. That might be a good method if you've already done a few rounds of hardcore purging and decluttering in your home, but if you're just starting out, if you have a lot of things that you feel like you need to get rid of, really try to just do one space at a time. Okay, and then my fourth tip is to declutter by item, not by space, and that sounds like it contradicts my previous tip, but it actually doesn't. For instance, if you're trying to tackle your bedroom, instead of doing the whole bedroom at once, like clothes and shoes and maybe books and whatever else you have stored in your bedroom, try to do all of the clothing first. And when I say declutter by item, not by space, that means that when you're decluttering your clothing, get together all of your clothes in the whole house. So if you also have clothes stored in the basement or in the attic or maybe in a guest room or wherever else you have other clothing stored, bring it all into one space and declutter all of your clothing at once instead of decluttering it as you reach each of those spaces. Being able to see all of the items of one category, like all of your clothing or all of your shoes together in one space, especially if you tend to store them separately, is going to be so helpful in the decluttering process. And it really just helps change your perspective on the things that you need to get rid of. So let's say you're decluttering your kitchen cabinets and you're working on your kitchen dishes. If you also have dishes stored in the basement or you also have dishes stored somewhere else, get all of the dishes together and do all of the dishes at once instead of decluttering the second half of your dishes when you get to the other room. So you're still decluttering by space, you're not doing the whole house at once, or you're not doing like several projects at once, but you want to make sure that all of the items of one category are together when you're decluttering. My next minimalist decluttering tip is don't start with the hardest thing. If for you getting rid of clothes is going to be really hard, don't start there because you're going to be overwhelmed and maybe discouraged or disappointed. Start somewhere that's easier, that you have less of an emotional attachment to, so that you can kind of get the ball moving and you can work up to the harder places. My next tip is to take everything out. So whether you're decluttering your kitchen cabinets or your bathroom vanity or your closet in your bedroom, take every single item out. I know that sounds like a lot of work, and yes, it will make a big mess, but I honestly don't think that you can properly declutter a space without doing this. Because if you're cleaning out your closet and you're just kind of looking at everything and grabbing things that you're like, oh, I actually don't need this anymore, you're really gonna miss things. There might be something that fell or that got pushed to the back. There's something about having to hold each and every one of your items in your hand and place it back into the closet or into the drawer or into wherever you're placing it. There's something powerful about holding every single thing separately. And then another reason why I think that it's so important to take everything out is so that you can take that time to clean down your cabinets, maybe vacuum out your closet, and just really clean the space before putting everything back into it. My next tip is to have a box or bag ready for donations and for garbage. I prefer doing this instead of having two separate piles because I find when you have piles, they kind of like merge together and then you get confused and garbage ends up in your donate pile and then you almost have to sort through things again later. Just get a cardboard box and put all of your donations into it, or a plastic bag or whatever you want to use for donations, and just put everything straight into there while you're decluttering. And then along with that, once you finish a space, get rid of those items right away. Don't hold on to them. Don't tell yourself that you're gonna go to the thrift store once you finish decluttering your whole house, because then you're gonna have so many things sitting around, taking up space, making a mess, and then there's a possibility that you're gonna go back into a donation bin and take things out of it. If you're planning on selling items, make sure that you list them right away on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or Kijiji or wherever you're selling items. List them right away and then give yourself a time limit. So in a week, if these items haven't sold, then you're gonna donate them and get them out of your home. Don't hold on to them forever. And then my last minimalist decluttering tip is to maintain your space. So unfortunately, minimalism doesn't mean that you can declutter your space one time and then be done with it forever. It'll stay perfectly decluttered. That isn't realistic for most of us. Even if you're careful, things have a tendency to crawl back into our lives, whether it's things that you were given as a gift, or maybe right now you have a hobby, but a year from now you're not really doing that hobby anymore. At that point, you can declutter those items, even though right now you obviously weren't ready to get rid of them. As careful as you are, decluttering is something that needs to be done regularly. So maybe the first Saturday of every month you take a couple hours to declutter your whole house. And in the maintaining stage, I think you can declutter bigger areas in a smaller amount of time because you're not doing a massive purge. So when you're maintaining your space, maybe just take a few hours to declutter, get rid of some things, or maybe you'd prefer to take a longer period of time, a couple times a year, to go deeper into your things, but make sure you're maintaining your minimalist space. If there are any other minimalist decluttering tips that you love that you don't feel like I talked about, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. And if you're new here, be sure to check out my whole series on minimalism that I will have linked above and in the comment box below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in a few days in my next video.